Hey everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer and I'm here today to talk about the transits in December 2025. The month is packed with planets that are going to be stationing to go direct. These are the outer planets and well, some of them are the outer planets. And I say this because when a planet is stationing, it's 5 times more powerful than it is when it's in motion. And many of the planets are going to be um, settling in 2026 in new signs, in new elements, which is going to really change the landscape of what we're walking through. So that 2025, especially December, feels almost like it brings a culmination of awarenesses, a culmination of conclusions. They could be literally endings of something, or they could be conclusions that you draw emotionally, spiritually, about the direction you want to go in. So what I'm going to do quickly is talk about the major shifts that are happening in 2026 so that you can look at your own personal chart and see how December is offering you opportunities to take advantage of these energies because they're very powerful. One of the first things that's going to happen, I think, that's so powerful in 2026 is Chiron. Chiron is going to move into Taurus in June. So Chiron is in the last degrees of Aries. This is affecting the cardinal signs. You're either having a conjunction, a square, or an opposition. Depending upon the degree of any of those energies, cardinal energies, is going to represent the intensity of what you will experience. With Chiron in Aries right now, it's about the self. And why is this so important? Because Saturn and Neptune are moving into Aries, into the early degrees of Aries. They're wrapping up their journey through Pisces. Neptune has not been in Aries for 165 years. So it's going to settle in on the world axis, giving us an opportunity to actually recreate who we are. And I think in some ways, Neptune's erosion could be the erosion of the ego in a negative fashion. But most of humanity does not make the self a priority. We're selfish people. And I think that's going to be reframed so that when we take care of the self, we are better able to be the hero to take care of others. So Neptune will settle into Aries in January. We will see Saturn re-enter Aries in February. Right now, Uranus is in the last degrees of Taurus. It will move into Gemini and settle into Gemini in April. So we're looking at the planet Neptune that represents not only spirituality, but blurry lines, foggy lines. You can't see clearly. Saturn representing, the stoic and sort of responsible way of looking at the material plane through the eyes of the physical, through the history of the physical. Now, Saturn is being tasked by Neptune to erode some of those old structures and give life to something through a spiritual lens. And Uranus is complementing that as it moves into or wraps up its journey through Taurus, breaking down old histories, old insecurities, a lack of the voice, and then bringing it into Gemini, where the voice will be much more looking to the future, aligned to my hopes and my dreams, and for the collective. And then Chiron. This is a huge thing. Chiron is going to move into Taurus in 2026. Chiron represents the wound that becomes the wisdom. It's truly to say it becomes a gift feels a little bit like it's too Pollyanna, it's too syrupy, because the wound that Chiron represents is chronic. It is in your face all the time. And Chiron's energy was constantly giving, giving through the spiritual warrior, giving through the knowledge that Chiron possessed through the traumas and challenges that Chiron experienced in its evolution in the legend. So here we're really looking at Saturn and Neptune giving us an opportunity to let those old structures erode and then moving into Chiron's energy of transformation from the wound into the wisdom. And the wisdom will then give ourselves an opportunity as it moves into Taurus to use our skills to build something strong using our voice. So this is very important. Jupiter will enter Leo in June. The nodes will change signs and enter the Leo Aquarius axis. So we will see a conjunction at some point between the South Node and Jupiter. That should be a real party. And then Venus is not retrograded at all in 2025, and she'll retrograde for the first time in 2 years in 2026. So let's jump to December, because December to me is teeing up an awareness in these energies. Now, that awareness is not about, I want to offer it this way. I think the awareness is an understanding that we're walking through a storm. So we batten down the hatches, we fill the cupboards with staples that will get us through. But these are going to be spiritual staples. These are going to be where the South Node right now is transiting through Virgo. We're going to see an opportunity to allow the toxic thoughts, the intrusive thoughts that we literally give life to, their power, and feel powerless over them. And this is where we infuse our spirituality, where we go into the dynamics of our meditations, of our spiritual practices. I would just start thinking about people who are very cerebral and very prone to anxiety. Virgo is a sign that's prone to anxiety. Aquarius is a sign that's prone to anxiety, and Gemini as well. This is where you kind of use the Caesar Milan. You work out, you physically exhaust the body, then you go into your spiritual practices. This is how you'll start to anchor in a stronger sense of yourself and not feel so vulnerable to the intrusive thoughts, to the thoughts that are repetitive. The brain is an organ. It is not it's not something that we master. It's something that we only can master through awareness of the organ having an imprint and continually, on some level, wanting to play back the old stories and give them credit. So let's jump into the transits. I'm going to pull up the chart. And I encourage you to look at your charts in Placidus. And I say this, I've said this more and more over the last year, because as I've studied, and I'm a late degree Aries rising, I realize almost my first house is actually in the 12th house, which significantly changes my vibration, especially as an Aries. And we see this is the example here is that we start the month off in a Pisces rising. And this is a 3-degree Pisces rising. So if you're born on this day, at this time, you will have a strong Piscean first house. But if you're born a few hours later, it could completely change. So here we see Saturn has turned direct. Neptune has been retrograde at 29 degrees, its whole retrograde, and will remain there. It does not go direct until the 10th. And this is significant because this whole retrograde has given Neptune so much power at an anaretic degree in its own sign, which it rules, conjunct the world axis. Neptune is eroding all structures on a subconscious level, on a creative level, I almost want to say on a deceiving level. And I mean that in the way that if you're deceiving yourself because you don't see your greatness, or you're allowing yourself to feel diminished in some way, Neptune wants to erode that right now. Not only is the anaretic degree the most challenging degree because the planet is so familiar with the sign at this point. It has traveled through it. It has been, tasked with awareness. And here, this is about implementing that awareness as we move into a new energy. And Neptune, again, has not been in Aries since 1865, around the Civil War. So, United States Civil War. So we're looking at the 29 also reducing down to an 11. The 11 is that angel number. Be careful of what you're thinking right now because the angels are listening and it's manifesting very quickly. That's what we're looking at here. Now, with this conjunction of Saturn, there could bring a lot of your own personal history because we're looking at Pisces representing the soul's history. We're looking at Saturn representing humanity's history and Neptune representing a dissolving energy. So this is very powerful. And these two planets are making very favorable aspects to Uranus, also at 29 degrees. It's going to go back a little bit further into Taurus before it moves forward, and very favorable degrees to Pluto. I bring up these two long-term outer planets because Pluto removes toxicity. Pluto brings up the underbelly, and Uranus looks to the future and unexpectedly will have these epiphanies and this genius. These planets are going to be in concert, in harmony, in cooperation for years to come. So we as a collective are experiencing this environment. Now, on the first, we see that Venus has entered Sagittarius. She's nice and cozy. She enjoys this. She's out of her detriment. And we see that Jupiter, being exalted, is retrograde, making favorable aspects. So there is, again, I think Jupiter representing my spiritual beliefs, my expansive practices. Not everybody has to believe in God to believe that the universe has the potential to draw to us whatever it is that we need and want to experience. We also see a nice little sextile here between Pluto and Venus. So this is really sort of giving us an opportunity to look deeper into how we make our money, how we interact with our partnerships, what we think about our own self-worth, our qualities, our skills, our values, our talents, and our relationships with the female energy. We are going to go into a full moon in Gemini on the 4th, and that's going to take place at, 3:14 p.m. Pacific time. If you are not in the Pacific, please adjust for your location. My little disclaimer. A full moon is always an illumination, but this particular full moon, the sun is conjunct the great attractor. So while the moon is reflecting the sun's light, and the nodes are exactly at 13 degrees, we are looking at a grand square. This is such a powerful illuminating moon. Even if there are no other aspects happening, this in and of itself is so, this is a potential to be life-changing. And I don't mean it necessarily on the outside, but on the inside. What we're looking at is the nodes being on the axis of enslavement to the brain and to my everyday activities, Virgo, in opposition to the North Node, the spiritual, creative, dreamy energy. And this is truly what I believe we're here to do, is to create, to explore, to play in the earth plane. And now there's an illumination of my emotions versus my ego. And how am I feeling about myself? There's something that really, am I holding back from my own broadening? And I say that because Gemini and Virgo are both ruled by Mercury. And while Mercury is not necessarily in this mix, and the South Node, I think, if Christopher Witecki has a theory, and I absolutely agree with him, that Chiron rules Virgo and Earth rules Taurus. I love that subtle shift, because why wouldn't Earth rule something? So here we go with Chiron offering a healing or a balancing or potentially an erosion of the wound in and of itself, but it doesn't turn it into some sort of, oh, la, 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 I'm great now. It turns it into wisdom. So you don't walk a path again. You don't make the same choices. You don't allow yourself the same scrutiny or the same criticism. We can see that in Virgo. So I think this is one of the things that's very powerful about this moon. Let's click on the sun quickly, and we see there the sun is conjunct very loosely Mars and Venus. But these planets, Venus is never far from the sun. Mars is about to move into exaltation in later in the month. So this is really powerful because we've got the sun on the great attractor, having me, rather than look at my ego as edging or as something negative, we look at it as exciting opportunities that God has put forth, exciting God opportunities. That's what I was trying to get out of my mouth. And Venus being in this fiery sign, it really feels like it has to do with illumination on how I feel about using my skills to create more abundance, more flow of material resources. And Mars here is, pretty far out of orb from the full moon, but still in play. So this would be more about taking action, being brave. Am I following through? Am I setting myself up to win? So I think this is going to be a powerful moon for illuminating those questions and for also, starting to implement really using the laws of attraction, the universal laws of compensation, of ebb and flow to bring things to me versus fighting, trying to grab at them or trying to make them happen. On the 5th, the sun will be conjunct the great attractor. And this orb here, so for these few days, on the day of the full moon, there's an illumination. Now, as a result of the illumination, the awareness, the aha moment, this is where you can start to implement that attracting what it is you want versus focusing in on what you don't want or what you're experiencing as a challenge. On the 10th, Neptune will go direct. So this conjunction between Neptune and Saturn has not happened for 1470 years. And I say that that's the conjunction in Aries. In Pisces, it's probably even older. So these two planets have not traveled together at this place where there's a call to build Saturn, my house, through spirituality, through my connection to my deeper part of my soul, what my soul wants. Let's say you're, in your late 40s and you have a fabulous voice and you go to karaoke and you think I could have been a contender. This is the time to build and not look at your age, Saturn, but to allow that to be eroded away and to give yourself an opportunity to step into that dream world. And I think that this conjunction here, which will last until the middle of the year before Saturn starts to move away from Neptune, it really is a very, it's an erosive and yet it's an extremely, it's almost like, when you build a house, you kind of have to level the ground to make sure your house is built flat. That's what it's been doing, leveling the ground so that you can build again anew with more faith, more connection to spirit, more awareness of your own soul's desires. Mercury will re-enter Mercury's going to re-enter Sagittarius, having come off of a retrograde, went direct on the 29th. So it's finally going to be feeling out of the stingy thoughts that come with Mercury and Scorpio. I personally have Mercury and Scorpio. Let's move along here. Why is my computer not moving? What happened? There we go. Mercury is technically in detriment in Sagittarius, and at the same time, there's an interesting feeling of applying my mind. This is where Mercury likes short bits of information, very brief affirmations. I am in flow. I am abundant. I am aligned. This is where Mercury can really come into a strong space. And I think with Venus being here, now conjunct the great attractor and Mars being on the galactic center, being brave enough to allow Spirit's voice, which will sound like your own voice, to remind you that it's not about being perfect in your spirituality or in your intentions. It's about seeing the ebb and the flow and taking advantage of when you're in a flow and surrendering when you're in an ebb. I think this is a really important dynamic. And Venus, while she is squaring the nodes right now, okay, um, this is where I think this is the old story is, oh my God, I don't have time for this meditation. I don't have time for this nonsense. And Spirit is saying, you don't have time not to do it. Okay. This is now your platform, your foundation. Um, we will see Mars squaring Saturn from the for pretty much half of the month. Okay, it's already started. It started about a couple of days earlier than what we're looking at right now. Now, this is interesting for me because Mars is exalted in Capricorn. Saturn is considered the one that slows things down. Mars wants to move very fast. I think at this moment, this with Mars being on the galactic center, there is an opportunity to download information that will actually illuminate where you might be tripping yourself up. And I say that because of the trine to Chiron, and the trine is really to the sun. So this particular time, these couple of days, there's a real opportunity to not judge yourself. Like for me, I'm a very passionate person. When I get excited, I'm not yelling. I'm talking, or I think I'm talking. But other people, sometimes it's just like too much. I don't criticize myself for that anymore because I know it's part of how I've always been. I'm Aries rising, I'm ruled by Mars. So this would be an illumination, I think, of some of what you may have perceived as wounds, divots, places you were not, in full bloom. And yet you will be able to see how they serve you versus tanking you if you're brave enough to do it. And depending upon where this is in your chart, where the Sagittarius energy is, will illuminate the landscape. For me, Sagittarius is very much my eighth house, so it's about transformation. Mars will enter its exaltation in Capricorn on the 15th. And this is always where I kind of laugh again because Mars wants to move fast. Supposedly Saturn wants to limit and repress, but this is where Saturn is the sensei and Mars is the mentee. I feel like when Mars gets into Capricorn, Mars understands more in a broader, bigger, deeper, more emotional way how important it is to think about the whole. There's a strong sense of leadership in Capricorn. It's an authority sign. It's a sign that rules government. So I actually think that Saturn and Mars complement each other. I think that it's more in youth where Mars is challenging with Saturn. And as Saturn is about to enter Mars's territory, I think this feels military. It's almost like Saturn and Mars are saying you need to take a more regimented approach to your career, to how you're being seen as a leader, how you handle yourself. This is when Saturn goes into Aries, Mars doesn't get to be the hothead it used to be. It has to be more controlled in the emotions. And that's why I think they really complement each other. And that's why when Mars is in Capricorn, it understands that that control is not necessarily repression or limitation, it's mastery. It's knowing when to emote and when to hold back, or when to react and when not to react, to make a choice of what you want to do. Um, Now, what we're going to start to see, we see a stellium growing in Sagittarius right now. We have Mercury here, we have Venus here, the sun is here. And we're going to start to see that going into Capricorn as we go into January. So that's something to pay attention to because whatever awarenesses, whatever expanded way you've thought about things, I interrupted my own brain because all of a sudden there was the travel thing. And in the United States, there's been a lot of travel issues. And the other thing that's interesting, I just recently learned that Jupiter also rules weather and thunderstorms and lightning, not just Uranus. So there could be an expansion of weather for some reason or things. If you're traveling, be mindful of that. I just want to throw that out into the world because this growing stellium feels like it's bringing in a powerful energy, or it's bringing in a concentration of duplicity. Mercury. Oh, I'm aware that, I'm not looking at things from a well-rounded way. I'm either too broad or too short. I need to dig deeper. I need to allow things to marinate. I think that Venus is really about, how do I want to broaden my resources? How do I want to broaden my skills to provide more resources? And Mars going into Capricorn will give us the next couple of months to start to, think about how we build that house and how we brick by brick build it so it is sustainable. Um, on the 19th, we'll see a new moon in Sagittarius at 5:43 p.m. Pacific time. I always think the Sagittarius season is so magical because of the points, having the galactic center at 27 degrees and then having the great attractor at 14 degrees it feels very empowering to me. So here we have this new moon at 28 degrees, which is, again, reduces down to a 10. So we're really seeing a concentration of, how do I think, the master class of being in those late degrees of Sagittarius and conjunct the galactic center. So I think that as we as humans take a moment in this new moon to really not just set our intentions for a new experience, but to allow the universe to download or to give us information through signs and symbols, not just meditation. Through our awarenesses as we walk through our day, of those weird subtleties, those coincidences that only you get. Nobody else may see their significance, but when you see it, you'll know it. So I think this is really offering to plant the seeds. Now, when I say plant the seeds, I mean to start the processes, to be really like, okay, I know I'm in this earthly body. I know my bills are due. I know there's nothing in my checking account, but I'm going to tell the universe, bring me money. And instead of thinking that's crazy, I'm going to start to measure how much fear I have and how much faith I have. This is our square to Saturn and Neptune. This new moon squaring these 2 points are like, it's this planting the seeds to bring awareness of the physical apparatus and its limitations, and yet knowing that through our connection to our bigger part of ourselves, we have magic that we cannot see. And that is demonstrated by the quincunx to Uranus retrograde. Exact. You can't see it. You can only feel it. And it may feel a little uncomfortable right now. Chiron is supporting this loosely, but it's supporting Venus mostly. So as you are willing to put your money on your skills, your money on your own voice, your money on your intuitive, receptive energy, that's ultimately Venus's job. And I want to point out that Venus has no moons, and neither does Mercury, but I'm going to focus on Venus right now because that's why I think sometimes Venus is insecure, because it's harder for her to emotionally connect. She's too busy interacting with other energies and measuring herself through the reaction of the other energies. So during this new moon, when you're planting the seeds to build your life and to build your relationships, your monetary abundance, your whole life experience on a new paradigm, a paradigm that most humans will tell you is ridiculous and stupid, and they'll scare you because if you listen to humans, they're scary. Okay. The other thing that's happening during this new moon, is Jupiter is making some interesting aspects to Venus and to Saturn and here to Chiron. Again, here we're being tasked, Jupiter representing our faith, Chiron representing our wound. They're fighting themselves. I've been poor my whole life. I never have any money. Money never comes to me easily. And, your belief will keep you stuck in your spot. That's the blind side to Venus. And Venus is not quite conjunct the galactic center. When we're at the galactic center, we're really wanting a tight orb, 1 to 2 degrees, but she's 3 degrees away from it here. So there is a feeling of, you know, I can't see how it's going to play out. And Saturn's saying, stay the course. Stay the course beyond your eyes right now. And that's when the shift will actually take place. And this is what I want to offer. Shifts don't take place like in the movies, okay, where suddenly, everything is solved in one 2-minute scene. This will be a series of intuitive hits inside of you that start to get validated, that build the house, that gives you the structure to move forward in a way that's magical versus muggle. Okay. Also, during this moon, Mercury is making a square to the nodes. So here we have this theme again, Mercury 10 degrees, the nodes at 11 degrees. The ones are adding up to thought, thought, thought. So each one of these aspects I've brought up right now during this new moon is bringing in an awareness of how much I sit in the old story, in the old vibration, in the muggle vibration of how money is actually made, and how much do I move myself into a whole new situation. The people who are influencers on the various platforms on the internet, they were never guaranteed a monetary success. What they did is they found something that hooked them, that made them want to continue on, a passion, hopefully. And they created content based on that passion, and that passion created the law of attraction to bring the people who also share that passion. That is what this Mercury's aspect now is. You're going to think that you can't do it potentially. Mercury is in detriment here. And the nodal axis will support it. Virgo somehow will support that. That's crazy because Mercury rules Virgo. I think Chiron does. I'll say that again. And it's just too watery for Mercury. Pisces compassion and Pisces water is just so removed from Mercury. So there's a fight there. So we've got all this going on during the new moon. So you really are planting the seeds in faith. If you like to converse with the universe, whatever team you think is watching over you, because I don't care what name you give it, the universe is listening, and it's listening to your emotional body, not your words. So if you're frustrated, if you're feeling stuck, if you're focusing in on the stuck instead of what it feels like to be on the other side of stuck, it feels easy, it feels flowy. I feel aligned. Take the alphabet and use that. Use Mercury's small bits of information to create a map of the universe so that they can emotionally align to you in the future and bring that into your present. Okay. Where am I going now? Okay, the sun will enter Capricorn on the 21st. I'm going to go back to 12 p.m. and watch it won't be there yet. Oh, there it is. Yay. Now, this is important to pay attention to because the sun here is making a square to Neptune and Saturn, and technically a square to the world axis. Again, here's that ego. Here's that part of me this has been my experience. This is what it's like to be human. What goes up must come down, and when great things have happened for humanity, people have done things that couldn't be done. And that is where we see this quincunx to Uranus offering us this, if we just sort of suspend belief, no yes, no no, just a big maybe, then because you won't be able to see what Uranus will bring in the way of opening something up. And this is again a layered effect. It's not all in one day, but it could be a series of epiphanies, a series of aha moments. We see on this day as well that Mercury is almost conjunct the great attractor at 14 degrees, but it's still making a square. Now, this is what I want to offer you because this could be a real contrasting day. We're getting very close to the Christmas holiday. Mercury rules running around and errands and all the things that need to be done, our sisters, our brothers, our cousins, family, and it's fighting with the nodes. So you may think, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that. And at the same time, the nodes are tasking, maybe even compelling you to make yourself a priority, your spirituality a priority, to do something foreign and different, and to see how the universe can bring in things and almost like stretching time for you. I used to play this game years ago. I had a job that was about 15 minutes from home. And I mean, I was always cutting it to the very wire. And I remember I'd be, at the very end of my morning routine and say, Spirit, please just stretch time so that I get there, when I'm supposed to arrive. And sure enough, I'd hit every green light. But I also was playing with my belief system and being aware. So when I hit the red lights, I would know I was out of alignment. That's very powerful at this time. Okay. And we see Venus is she's almost there at the galactic center. So again, as the planets during this season move through this these points in Sagittarius, there's such an opportunity to truly connect, put in a sense of discipline and routine, like you brush your teeth every morning. And you can do a lot of these things while you're brushing your teeth, by the way. You don't always have to be sitting in an Om position. It's more about the awareness and the intention, truly. All right, Venus will enter Capricorn, not her sexiest sign, on the 24th. This is where she gets super practical. And she starts thinking about, all right, I'm wanting to build some money. And now she's making squares to Saturn and to Neptune. This could be just where, this is a challenging energy during the holidays. Here it is, it's Christmas Eve, and the world economy's been in a state of flux, we'll say, to be nice, and we're all probably feeling a pinch a little bit. So this conjunction or this square is, we've got these three planets influencing it a bit, but mostly Venus. So you may inadvertently feel old stories coming back about who you are, what you are. And if indeed you're excited about your spirituality and you're interacting with people at the holidays that, don't necessarily align to your spirituality, don't talk about it. Don't shoot yourself in the foot by being excited and then having somebody dampen your spirit, because in Venus in Capricorn can start to feel a little damp. Okay, Mercury will hit 27 degrees of Sagittarius on the 30th. And, here we are, well, maybe a little later in the day. We see 26 degrees, 52 minutes. But what I want to bring this up is here we're looking at, as the end of the year comes upon us, the planets, the change of we say it's a new year, but the planets are continuing on. That's where I'm going with this. While we're seeing Neptune and Saturn move forward, they're continuing to task us to be mindful. What are we thinking? Are we giving into the group, the crowd, the community? Are we individualizing ourselves? Are we connecting to spirit? Are we connect? And when I talk about spirit, sometimes I want to clarify this, because I truly believe that the entirety of the soul is not encased in this small human experience. And oftentimes the wisdom of who we are sits outside of ourselves. A part of us sits outside and holds space for the veil, knowing we're underneath it. So you could talk to yourself, the higher version of yourself, if you don't believe in anything else, and call that forth, and you will start to feel the magic of that higher part of yourself. And this is where I feel like Chiron's wound is most chronic, is when we abandon the self and we think that we're just this. One of Chiron's wounds was abandonment, because he's half beast, that instinctual, kind of feral energy, and then the human, which, well, in this case, actually a god, because Saturn was the father, and the craziness of that contrast. And yet, if we think about humans are God's light, and we're in this feral body with these minds that just zip around like nonsense, they just run loops. And very rarely do we stop the loop long enough to determine if the loop is still valid or has it expired. And that's what the outer planets are offering us. That's what this conjunction is offering us. It's why it's so hard on the personal planets, because the personal planets are ruling our everyday experience. So I'm going to stop my share right now. There's a lot, going on, not just in the stars, but within our own personal histories. So be gentle with yourself and your personal history. Be gentle with the unraveling of that story and the transformation of it into wisdom. You will never release it. It happened to you. You felt it. Your soul knows it's there. So there's no sense to fight it. But there is an opportunity to create wisdom, abundance, and benefit from it. So as Saturn and Neptune want to erode the bad story, and it kind of fights with your everyday experience. And when I say everyday experience, I'm talking about the everyday experience you have in your brain as you're running through the situations of your life. Why does this always happen to me? Why do I always get stuck behind the guy that never moves? Why do I, whenever you say that story, you're somewhere in your loop. All right, that's it for December 2025. Again, my name is Teri Hunter. I am available for intuitive readings, astrology readings. Reach out to me if you'd like to join on Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Pacific time. I do a live every we go through the transits of the week, and then I do a reading for everybody based on the tarot and the angel cards. So like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Thank you so much, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.